Thank you so much for a beautiful introduction. We had a wonderful time in South Korea, in Seoul, last year, and I got to really share a very beautiful part, of Women's Federation for World Peace and UPF there as a representative of United States with former presidents from all around the world, former prime ministers, Ministry of Justice of Japan. It was just a wonderful experience. I was in Japan, and then I flew to South Korea. It was my first time there. So I'm deeply thankful for Women's Federation for World Peace for giving me the opportunity to lead the world and the younger leaders for sustainable peace. I also want to thank especially to Angelica Sell, which has invited me for the fourth time to be the speaker, and this time the keynote speaker. No pressure after all these wonderful speakers here. I also want to thank Angelica for believing in me and for helping me develop throughout the Women's Federation for World Peace my leadership skills. I also want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Moon and honor Dr. Moon, which is, in heaven now, for laying the foundation for a wonderful organization for uniting women across 120 nations that are together throughout all around the world for world peace. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Today I'm going to talk about sustainability, peace. So let's think about the word, sustain. What does it mean to sustain? When you are an athlete and you are running, let's say 1,000 meters, and you are training really hard to be a champion or, to run a marathon, let's say, you have to sustain a certain level of health, a certain pace in order to finish the race. So in order to achieve peace, we have to sustain certain elements in order to have the end goal, which would be to attain peace all around the world. Sustainable is able to sustain. So you have to be able to sustain your speed in a race in order to win or to complete the race. In order to sustain a child, you have to be able to sustain that child throughout their life, since they are babies all the way until they're 60 sometimes. Moms still treat us like little kids. They're able to sustain us all the way through. So the key component this year, we have had many, many wonderful talks about peace, but the key component is what do we do in order to have to being able to sustain peace in our personal lives, us as leaders, as mothers, as wives, and in the projects that we choose to participate on or to lead on in the world or in our own communities. My experience with peace it comes from a very early age. I was born in Bogota, Colombia. Not Colombia, but Colombia, with an O. And it's in South America, near Brazil, surrounded by Venezuela, Peru, and Ecuador. And at that time, in the 80s and the 90s, Colombia was the #1 violent country in the world. The ratings of crime, kidnapping, were very, very high. We had a huge problem with the drug cartels there. Now, today, in 2015, Colombia is the #1 happy country in the world. I am very proud to be Colombian, and I am very proud to talk a little bit today, just a little bit, because this is global and it's about all the world. What Colombia has done in order to achieve peace after a 50-year civil war that we have been going through, and many of us had to flee the country because of that reason. It's very interesting how life turns around in a circle, and now I go back after 16 years of living in the United States to Colombia to bring peace to my country and to participate as a woman leader in the peace talks and the peace projects that are being done in order to bring a closure into this civil war that Colombia has had. It has changed tremendously. It's a very safe country. The kidnap rate has gone tremendously down. There's no kidnapping there, now happening. The level of poverty has been eradicated in the very big cities, which is huge. I would say 14, 15 years ago, it was very different because the kids will live on the streets in little card boxes, or they will also live in houses made of garbage. This time that I went, I have been there 3 times in less than a year, in the poor neighborhoods, because Colombia is divided by numbers, 1 being the poorest, 6, 7 being the richest neighborhoods. They have developed, we went to a number 1 neighborhood, and it was very interesting because they had houses made of bricks, they have electricity, they have water, you didn't see any garbage thrown there, it's very clean, everybody has their own car. And I was really amazed. I was like, wow, the government has actually done this. But it was not only the government, it was the government, the education communities, the families, the mothers, the fathers, the business people. Everybody came together and said, okay, it's time to leave this image behind and promote a positive image and move forward in history. So the level of poverty has been eradicated. We have also been to the Amazons where the indigenous tribes live. And there is the 3 frontiers between Peru, Colombia, and Brazil. And the indigenous tribes, a lot of the oil companies and a lot of other corporations are coming to develop the Amazons. But a lot of the indigenous tribes have been able to pass legislations and bills where they can protect actually one of the lungs of the world in order to have a balanced ecosystem and a harmony between development of a country as well as maintaining a good relationship with Mother Earth and nature, which is very important not to create more toxic waste or industrial waste, in our oceans or in the Amazon rivers where everything, before was dumped. So now, actually, there are rules and regulations where you have to clean up the messes that you have caused, or you have to clean up if you start developing in these particular areas of the country. So in a nutshell, Colombia has been able to attain a sustainable peace. It has been able to attract tourism. So we can look at my country, Colombia, as an example of how to eradicate poverty, 1, how to educate the children and the leaders of tomorrow that they can actually do something about it together in your country or any country that you are from, and be actively involved with everyone in the community in order to achieve that goal. Number 3, it is the number 1 happy country in the world.
Viva Colombia!
Gracias! So how do you come from, in only 16 years, from being the number 1 violent country to the number 1 happy country in the world? It's a tremendous amount of effort, and American government had to do a lot with it. They have a US military base in Colombia, and the American government helped and sent troops there to educate and to train the local police forces and the local people, that are actually going into the places to rescue at that time, the people that were held hostage, and how to prevent these things, and the military tactics that have been done in America that have helped in order to create and have sustainable peace in America, where we are here in this wonderful city of Washington, D.C. We don't have to worry about things that are going on in Syria, in Africa, in certain parts of Latin America where you are sleeping and then all of a sudden a bomb drops or a guerrilla group comes and then they just murder everybody. We don't have to deal with those things on a daily basis. And unless you come from a country where you have to deal with those things on a daily basis, you really can't understand why a lot of these people come to America. And they leave their countries to come here because we have something as a nation to offer as a role model, as a big sister or big brother to other countries to follow. So a lot of times people criticize American government, and my question is, American government is amazing. I love America. I spend my time between Japan, America, and Colombia. So I'm literally constantly every 3 months adapting myself to 3 completely different cultures. And how do you do that? You know, because America, we have a melting pot here, and we have amazing opportunities to grow as leaders and as women here. Women here are not repressed as they are in other countries where women cannot do certain things, or they would get arrested if they are driving a car, which I've heard in the news, you know, last year, and things like that, right? So we have a lot of freedom here, and we set examples in other countries, but whatever America does has worked. It has worked so far. There is so much more to do, but it's a great example of leadership for peace and avoiding conflict wars or civil wars within, you know, the country among each other. For the future generations to come. Now, let's talk a little bit about Japan. There's so much to talk about sustainability of peace. I've heard today that they have been honoring the women of Japan, so konnichiwa, omedetou, nippon, daisuki desu. I've been learning Japanese. Thank you. My husband is Japanese. So I love Japan. I love my Japanese family, and we spend quite a lot of time there. What has Japan actually do to attain sustainable peace? Japan has actually, 2 years ago, launched a program called WOW. WOW. W-A-W, World Assembly for Women. And it was started by the wife of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, which we had the opportunity to meet in a Los Angeles luncheon. Our very good friend, Kato Katsunobu-san, the former Parliament Secretary of Cabinet, has been now, basically now, he's the Ministry of the Women's Ministry of Empowerment. So they have created a whole program in the government to empower women in Japan. And they are calling, in 2014, 2015, they have been calling women from all around the world to come and do a leadership skills and trainings there to educate women in Japan to seek positions of power, to shine the light that they were meant to do. So this is what's happening in Japan and women in order to create sustainable peace, which is a huge achievement for a nation country where women now can actually lead forward. So let's talk about actions. When I first started in Women Federation for World Peace, I was, you know. And then I have been growing up more and start taking more actions in my life in order to be a good leader. So after these seminars and after these events, what have I done to serve people, right? Because as Reverend Moon said, talk without action, basically, no, right? So what have been my actions since I started with the organization? Our organization, actually, the Koyamada International Foundation, have helped over 250 children this summer in 2015, empowering them to have a cross-cultural education for Japan to be open to other cultures, to accept other cultures and be tolerant of people that are different than you, and also to achieve their dreams. So that's one of the actions. The second action has been that I have been, like Angelica said this morning, using your talents for other things and where you are being called. I never in my life imagined I would end up talking with ambassadors from Colombia, meeting ambassadors of the UN, congresswomen, congressmen, but that's where life is taking me right now. And I am going to follow that calling because we need more women leaders in positions of power where they can change legislation and bills. Thank you. So what are some of the other actions to sustain peace? One, and the most special one, is creating peace within the family of my family of my family. We all have very large families, and there is always conflict within the families. Sister said this, brother said that, the cousin did that. 20 years ago, my great uncle did that to my father. My mother didn't talk to her sister. Grandma had a grudge against my other grandma. Okay, so as you grow up and you start learning about your ancestry and gathering your families together, then you start realizing how much conflict is in one family. Basically, each family is like a country. They have their own food, they have their own set of rules, they have their own enemies, their own allies. So one of the things that I have been working on for the past years is having this, I feel like I'm in the United Nations and then I'm the peace moderate, and I call all the families members that have had conflicts within each other, and I start working them out. So as a peace leader, you have to have a certain strength to go for it and not be afraid of what your mother, your father, your uncles, your cousins are going to say. So I invite you today to think about some members of your family where there is conflict, perhaps where they haven't talked for many years, perhaps where there has been a grudge, perhaps a cousin, long distance uncle that you haven't reached out, or an aunt, or an adoptive sister or brother. Think about your immediate family and go back home and work on achieving peace there. Because once you have a peaceful home with your husband, then that's great, but then it's time to expand it. And I am all about leading by example. I don't stand up here and preach something I don't practice. My values, my integrity, my ethic, and my peace values are something that I practice with my own family, with people and members that are not my family either, but they are my human family, and I practice them every single day. So I think it's imminent and very important that even if it's a little bitty of war going on in your immediate families, for you to go back and be that peace leader that will make the call and perhaps call Uncle Juanito with cousin Angelica, with a great cousin of someone else, and then you can invite them for dinner with the excuse that you want to see them, and then you bring the issue into the table and you say, okay, this happened 20 years ago. This happened last year. Don't you think it's time to forgive and let it go and then move forward as a peaceful family? Don't you think it's time for reconciliation, which is all about bringing us to the bridge of peace? I have been very honored to walk it three times. And you guys are in for a treat tonight. I walked it with my sister, so Juanita, and it was very interesting because my ancestors come from Spain. And so it was ancestries coming together from Spain and Africa to forgive each other and to love each other and to move on. Thank you. So looking at the Capitol Hill and the Library of Congress yesterday, one thing that they show you on the tours is to look up. And you look up at those ceilings where Abraham Lincoln stand, where George Washington was, where all the main leaders, and there is a heaven and the angels painted. They spent so much time painting these ceilings of Capitol Hill and Library of Congress and the Supreme Court. And they tell you on the tours that the great leaders of these nations used to just stand there and look up to get inspiration. And they have all these amazing, I was very surprised by all the type of angelic figures that they have there, it's almost like looking at heaven. Every day when you're ruling the country, every day seeking this spiritual guidance of whatever you believe in. So I think it's very important to respect other people's cultures, beliefs, and religions in order to attain sustainable peace. When we see our wars, most of them are because of economical differences, rich and poor, or more developed countries wanting to get more territory from other countries or wanting to exploit oil, mining, emeralds, gas, even going to the moon, the programs of the NASA, sending, people, experts, right, to get some sort of new renewable energy. So we even go out of this planet in order to conquer more. That's one of the main things. And the second thing is the religious differences. And that's one of the main issues of war. So in order to have a sustainable peace, we need a new set of mind. And we need to be like Peter Pan. I know you're thinking, why is she talking about Peter Pan? I love the movies of Peter Pan. When I was a little girl and I saw Peter Pan for the first time, I said to myself, I never want to grow up. Because it's that purity that you feel and that you have in children that is so pure, so beautiful. And sometimes when I was little and I would look up to the adults in my life and around, they would be so miserable, so preoccupied with life, so stressed out with everything, And then when you look at Peter Pan, well, he never grew up, But of course, you have to grow up in certain things. But I personally believe that in your heart, you should always hold that little child in you and always be very pure and innocent. Because most of the people that have been chosen in the world, to lead by light in this world of darkness are people that have a very pure spirit and they don't let toxic energies, toxic people, toxic thoughts to get into you and wear you down in order for you to stop believing that you can make a difference. When I moved to America from Colombia, I never in my life imagined that I would accomplish everything that I have accomplished. But now that I look back, everything connects. Every single dot connects at one point. And as you start getting older, you start realizing there is a sense of urgency. There is an urgency that we have to take action. We have to do something. You can start with a small project. So what are you going to do in your lives in order to sustain peace? And what are you going to do to develop the inner beauty as women that is going to get you in many areas of life to really go beyond all the dreams that you have, planned in your life. Life will take you many different routes. So sometimes you have to be like the bamboo, flexible, but the bamboo doesn't break. So to complete today, I would like to invite you to stop using words such as black, Hispanic, Asian, or yellow, red, fat, skinny, rich, poor. Because these words should be prohibited, just like cursing words are prohibited. When I grew up, my mom and my dad said, you don't curse. Those are bad words. You don't say them. We teach our children and the young people not to use those words. I think we need to reteach ourselves to stop using those words. Because when we use them, we are automatically segregating, automatically discriminating, and automatically forgetting that we are all one. We are all here. We are Americans. We are humans. We are world citizens. And that is the most important thing. So I would like to invite you to start looking at your vocabulary of things that you can do and correct other people in order to start a new movement, a new genre of a more open-minded vocabulary for sustainable peace. And I will also like to invite you to look at your families, find 1 or 2 or 3 members that are having conflict, and go ahead and seek resolution. Act like the ambassador of peace that you are in your own family. And then once you resolve that, you can look forward for other places, to seek resolutions of peace. Neighborhoods, communities, schools, and so forth. So to finish today, I would like to thank everyone for listening to the message. And I will also like to let you know that when you go back to your homes, just look up, like our great leaders of the foundation did. And maybe you can put a little angel or a little star, constellations. Why not have a little bit of the Capitol Hill roof in our homes or in our beds? Look up and seek for that inspiration and strength inside of you that you need to find in order to do what you need to do. Because whatever you feel that you need to do, like our young leader, Victoria, that wants to run for president in 2035. She already has a plan and she's 16. So what do you really want to do? Think in yourself and ask yourself, what do I really want to do? Look up for strength and take action and move on. Thank you.